Lately, the world seems to be spinning faster than ever. Protests are erupting across American universities as students and professors rise up against Donald Trump's new education mandates, accusing his administration of tightening control over academic freedom. The tension is thick not just in politics, but in people's hearts. And just as these global storms grow louder, another revelation has sent shockwaves through both the church and the world, a secret that was once locked away inside the Vatican for decades. It's called the Third Secret of Fatima, a message said to have been delivered by the Virgin Mary herself more than a century ago, warning of a dark spiritual crisis, the corruption of faith, and a time when truth itself would be tested. Now, as chaos spreads across nations, and even the most powerful leaders face confusion and rebellion, people are starting to ask, was this what the Virgin warned us about? Could the Third Secret of Fatima, long hidden from the public eye, finally be revealing itself right before our very eyes? The Third Secret is unfolding in America. Lately, the world feels like it's spinning faster than ever. Politics, protests, global tension, everywhere you look, something is falling apart. Even in America, under Trump's leadership, debates about truth, faith, and the future seem to grow louder by the day. The return of Donald Trump to power has once again stirred fierce debates and protests across the nation. His policies on education, immigration, and religion have ignited outrage on university campuses, drawing thousands of students and professors into the streets. Many accuse him of silencing academic freedom and forcing institutions to follow his strict mandates in exchange for federal funding. For some, Trump represents strength and order. For others, he embodies division and control. Some see this chaos as just another political storm, but others believe something far deeper is happening, something spiritual, that the world was warned about long ago. More than a century ago, 3 shepherd children in a small Portuguese village called Fatima claimed they saw visions of the Virgin Mary. During those apparitions, the children said Mary revealed 3 great secrets, prophecies, that would unfold across generations. The first 2 spoke of war, suffering, and the spread of evil through the world. But it was the third one, the mysterious Third Secret of Fatima, that the Church kept hidden for decades, and it's this secret that continues to shake the world even now. When the Vatican finally released the so-called Third Secret in 2000, they described it as a symbolic vision, a bishop dressed in white, walking through a ruined city filled with the dead, before being struck down. The Church said this vision referred to the persecution of believers and the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. But many people never accepted that explanation. Even those inside the Church believed something was missing, something unsaid. Sister Lucia, the last surviving child of Fatima, once hinted that the full message was too terrifying to be revealed all at once. And this is where the mystery deepens. Some believe the hidden part of the secret warned not only of wars and disasters, but of a great spiritual deception that would come from within the Church itself. A time when truth would be twisted, when the world would lose its moral compass, and when confusion would reign even among those who lead. Think about the world we live in now, truth and lies mixing so easily that most people no longer know what to believe. Faith is fading, families are divided, and darkness often feels louder than light. Could this be what the Virgin Mary tried to warn us about? And if we look around today, it's hard not to feel that our mother warning might be coming to life. The chaos in politics, the division in families, the fading of faith, and even the rebellion against moral values all seem to point toward a spiritual collapse far deeper than any government crisis. Leaders rise and fall, yet humanity keeps drifting further from truth. Perhaps what's unfolding in our time, from the clashes under Trump's leadership to the unrest spreading across nations, isn't just political turmoil, but a reflection of something foretold long ago. A world turning away from its creator. The Virgin's message wasn't just a prophecy. It was a desperate plea, a mother calling her children back before darkness fully takes hold. The children were erranted to meet Our Lady of Fatima. There were many adults at that time, But why did Our Lady of Fatima choose to reveal herself to 3 children? That's not a coincidence, guys, and not every child will receive such grace from Our Lady. The life of Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, little shepherds of Fatima, is a history of grace and mercy. In these children, we see in action the same paradoxical force which marks and acts in the whole history of salvation. The infinite disproportion between the history of the proud and powerful, with their schemes, strategies, and conflicts, and the history of the humble who, in the truth of their existence, are invited by God to be a leaven of transformation of humanity. As seers of God's mercy, the little shepherds will make known the message by them welcomed through their simple lives. They are chosen to be witnesses of the presence of God's love, of the God who is love, irradiating and making transparent to the world his merciful face that will turn their lives into a reflection of that light which is God himself. In the shade of an oak, the Lady made them see themselves in this light. Born in Aljustrel, a small place of Fatima parish in the early 20th century, the brothers Francisco and Jacinta and their cousin Lucia grow in a modest family environment in a harsh, quiet, and remote village. They did not know how to read or write, and little would actually know about geography, history, and world wisdom beyond the horizon and mountains. They received a very simple Christian upbringing and education as it was expected in the secluded environment in which they lived. Lucia's mother introduced her daughter and nephews to catechesis, and Lucia herself, a little older than her cousins, will teach them the biblical stories and the prayers she had learned from her mother. However, despite the simplicity of their Christian initiation, their parents gave them a living example of committed faith, the Sunday participation in the Eucharist, prayer in family, truth and respect for all, charity towards the poor and the needy. Lucia was a mindful child, attentive to God's love. The inner desire to be fully wrapped in the embrace of God will be the continuous line of the path she will follow. Francisco, with his contemplative gaze feeding the inner silence, stared at nature as one who feels the creation and plunges into the beauty of the Creator. He was fascinated by both the sunrise and sunset, which was his preferred candle, the candle of the Lord. Jacinta had a special preference for the candle of Our Lady, the moon, which did not hurt the eyes. The little girl accompanied very closely her cousin Lucia, for whom she had great affection. She embraced the lambs, called them by name, and walked among them, carrying on in her bosom to do as our Lord. They lived intensely, as only children can do. These children lived a simple life, devoted all their love to God sincerely, without unnecessary thoughts, and received the divine response. In a 1916 spring afternoon, after their simple prayer, the little shepherds saw, over the trees, a light whiter than snow in the shape of a young man, transparent as crystal when the sun shines through it. At this moment, nothing would make them assume that light in human form was the herald of God's peace, that would initiate them in their school of spirituality and prayer. It was something totally unexpected, and the little shepherds felt caught up in the contemplation of that immense light, plunged into an intense atmosphere in which the strength of the presence of God made them to be absorbed and struck dumb with amazement. The angel of peace visited them 3 times in spring and summer of 1916. His words, deeply impressed upon the minds of the children as a light which made them understand who God is, how he loves them and desires to be loved, refer to God's heart, speak of a heart attentive to the voice of the humble, for which he has a plan of mercy. The angel invites the children to the profound adoration of the Most Holy Trinity, to associate themselves with the sacrifice of Christ in the reconciliation of all in God. Afterwards, he offers them the body and blood of Christ, this first and foremost gift, in whose light they will be asked to offer themselves in sacrifice for all ungrateful men, for all those who do not know how to live in an attitude of thanksgiving. Since then, the little shepherds will live plunged in this worship of God, with a discreet but confident and bold desire to turn their lives into a gift offered to the Creator in behalf of others. This will be their vocation. When Our Lady, more brilliant than the sun, breaks out on May 13, 1917, and enters into the lives of 3 children. For 6 months, every 13th, the Virgin Mary will renew this invitation, on base of which the 3 shepherds will become humble witnesses of God's heart in the complexity of a suffering world. Are you willing to offer yourselves to God and bear all the sufferings He wills to send you as an act of reparation for the sins by which He is offended and of supplication for the conversion of sinners? In a succession of images unveiled by Our Lady, the little shepherds grasped the idea that God's heart is caring for the human history, that sin consists in being indifferent to God's heart, that God is merciful and is always in search of man entangled in his dramas and misfortunes, and that those who embrace the light of God's heart are invited to participate, by prayer and sacrifice, in His care for humanity. On the first immersion in that light, Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta, still savoring the echoes of the depth they had experienced, decided not to tell anything of what happened. But Jacinta, strongly affected by the beauty of the Lady and full of an irrepressible joy, cannot refrain herself. She is the first herald and messenger of this newfound divine joy communicated by the Lady. And like the disciples of Emmaus who, in front of the Paschal mystery, had a burning feeling in the chest, she will confess to her friends, "I had inside me something that would not let me be silent." The news of the apparitions of the Lady of the Rosary soon will make its way, and the number of those who, as pilgrims, come to the Cova de Iria will certainly increase. And so the children will have much to suffer at the hands of those who doubted or opposed them. Already in the first encounter, almost as if to confirm the children fiat, the Lady had assured them that they would have much to suffer, as was the case with prophets. The vocation of the little shepherds accepts suffering as an integral part of their mission. They will be for many accused of fraud and greed, even their own families, except perhaps the father of Francisco and Jacinta, fear they are spreading a lie and are afraid for their life. At home and everywhere, they are subjected to visits and to incessant and strenuous interrogations. But the greatest trial and affliction would occur on August 13. On the morning of that day, the children are surprised by the visit of the municipality of Orem administrator, a well-known Mason and free thinker. After having questioned them in their home and at the rectory, because he wanted at all costs to know the secret they insisted on keeping concealed, the administrator, in a tricky and deceitful way, proposes to lead them to the Cova da Iria, but in fact conveys them to Orem. There he insists on pressing the kids to unveil their secret, and even reach the point of locking them, for a while, in a cell with other prisoners, and of uttering the threat of making them fry in olive oil. Francisco's innocent reply radiates peace and joy. "If they kill us, it's all the same. We'll go to heaven." The life of the shepherd children no more ceased to be paced and measured by God's heart. The fiat uttered to the Lady more brilliant than the sun was constantly renewed by the innocent desire of Lucia, Francisco, and Jacinta to intensify in their lives the passionate affection for God. The presence of God became, for them, sacred ground, and, like Moses, barefoot in front of the burning bush, their intimacy is transmuted into an act of adoration in the presence of that inner light, which is God, which burns without consuming. That's the ineffable secret of strengthening them. This sacred bush burning in their chest awakens them, as once did to Moses, for the mission of caring for those who live in the slavery of sin and ingratitude. And so, in sight of all others, they are the presence of God's light, and also, before God, mediators in behalf of all others. Their lives become a constant offering of everything they are and do, however slight, for the love of God and in favor of sinners. Francisco, Jacinta, and Lucia's lives assume this vocation that is inseparably contemplative, compassionate, and announcing, but each of them will take on, with a particular and greater accent, the specific nature of their calling. Francisco, moved by his inner eye sensitive to the Spirit's light, listens to the call to worship and contemplation. Little Jacinta translates the joy, purity, and generosity of faith, welcomed as an offering of God's heart, and diffused through the chores and trifles of her life as a simple girl into a sacrifice acceptable to God in behalf of humanity. Lucia welcomes the mission to evangelize, to make known the good news of God's mercy, responding to the merciful God's desire to consecrate the world to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Lucia is the witness who quenches herself in order that light of the secret of God's mercy shine without interruption, as already definitively revealed by the Son and remembered at Fatima. In her we can catch a glimpse of the faithful witness of a gift that is accepted and offered to the world. Francisco and Jacinta's lives were brief and simple. They only lived from love and for love, which was revealed to them in the light offered by the hands of such a beautiful lady. And that was all. At the end of 1918, Francisco and Jacinta are taken by a bronchopneumonia epidemic. The lady had assured them they would go to heaven, and very soon, and so the children understood that their time was coming. Who would suspect that so brief and simple lives were capable of such love? Vatican discloses Third Secret of Fatima. Here, then, is the vision of the Third Secret that was released by the Vatican on the 26th of June, 2000. At the left of Our Lady, and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand, flashing. It gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire. But they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw in an immense light that is God, something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it, a bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men, and women. Religious going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city, half in ruins and half trembling with halting step. Afflicted with pain and sorrow, he prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him. And in the same way, there died one after another, the other, bishops, priests, men and women, religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross there were two angels, each with a crystal aspersorium in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God. The official Vatican interpretation of this is that it is a prophecy of the 1981 assassination attempt against Pope John Paul II. And of course, most of you are aware, Cardinal Ratzinger has stated that Catholics are not under obligation to accept this interpretation. Regarding what the Vatican released, there seems to be no reason to doubt that this is actually part of the Third Secret. The problems, however, show themselves in other areas. About the Third Secret, this was a vision seen by the seers in which a bishop, dressed in white, taken to be the Pope, struggled up a mountain through a half-ruined city, followed by numerous Catholics of all ranks. At the top of the mountain was a rough wooden cross, and here the Pope and his followers were all killed. This vision was explained in 2000 as symbolic of the sufferings undergone by the Church during the 20th century in particular. Fatima fanatics have held hunger strikes. One even hijacked a plane to try to force the Vatican to disclose the secret. During John Paul's first visit to the shrine in 1982, on the first anniversary of the assassination attempt, a knife-wielding Spanish priest tried to kill the Pope but was wrestled to the ground by security officers. Pope John Paul II has always credited the Virgin of Fatima with saving his life. After he visited the shrine in 1982 to give thanks for his survival, a bullet extracted from his body was placed alongside diamonds in a gold crown worn by a statue of the Virgin. In 1991, on the 10th anniversary of the attack, he returned again to give thanks for his life as well as for the collapse of communism, which believers say the Virgin of Fatima also predicted in 1917. On the solemn occasion of his visit to Fatima, His Holiness has directed me to make an announcement to you, Cardinal Sodano said, adding that the Pope wishes his pilgrimage to be a renewed gesture of gratitude to Our Lady for her protection during these years of his papacy. This protection seems also to be linked to the so-called third part of the Secret of Fatima. Pope John Paul II did refer to the prophecies today, speaking of Fatima, where these times of tribulation were foretold. But he made no mention of the third secret. Instead, he once again gave thanks for the goodness of God toward me, when severely struck on that the 13th of May, 1981, I was rescued from death. This revelation helps to explain the Pope's conviction that Our Lady of Fatima saved his life in an attack that took place on the 65th anniversary of the first apparition at Fatima. The Pope believed that a motherly hand which guided the bullet's path delivered him from the threshold of death. The Vatican said the Pope first learned of the secret a few days after he was elected in 1978. He did not announce it himself today, said his spokesman, Dr. Joaquin Navarro Valls, because he was personally involved. Vatican officials did not say why the secret was not revealed sooner after the assassination attempt in 1981. The fact that the Pope put the two dead witnesses to the Virgin's apparitions on the path of sainthood today was another sign of his devotion to Fatima. The two, Francisco and Jacinta Marto, are the first children ever beatified by the Roman Catholic Church who were not martyrs. Beatification, which is bestowed only on the dead, is the penultimate step before sainthood. For many decades, the Third Secret of Fatima was considered by many people to be one of the great mysteries of the Church. Because Our Lady's third secret, given privately only to Lucy, was held back for many more years, it led to much speculation and many conspiracy theories about its contents. What seemed clear was that the message reinforced with much more detail that humanity faced a very dire future filled with chaos if it did not turn away from sin. I think we can all agree, no matter what our religious or political bent, that the world is getting weirder and wilder by the day, and, yes, that applies to the chaos that has seeped into the Church. Here's what Pope John Paul II said in 1980 during a visit to Fulda, Germany, when asked about the third secret. He replied, "If there is a message in which it is said that the oceans will flood entire sections of the earth, that, from one moment to the other, millions of people will perish, there is no longer any point in really wanting to publish this secret message. Many want to know merely out of curiosity, or because of their taste for sensationalism, but they forget that to know implies for them a responsibility. It is dangerous to want to satisfy one's curiosity only if one is convinced that we can do nothing against a catastrophe that has been predicted." Later, Cardinal Ratzinger indirectly admitted in an interview that the third secret did indeed contain these catastrophic warnings. Cardinal Ratzinger's response, that revealing the third secret would add nothing necessary for the Christian to know, and that it would mean exposing the Church to the danger of sensationalism, exploitation of the content, also seemed to confirm, albeit with prudent circumlocutions, that the contents of the third secret of Fatima did contain those disconcerting messages. Clearly, both John Paul II and Cardinal Ratzinger dodged the question. But why? If the third secret did not contain these frightening threats, why not just say so? A no would not have been sensational and, in fact, would have helped diffuse the speculation. For decades, the world has known the main message of Fatima. The Blessed Mother warned that punishment would come, involving great sufferings for the world, if mankind did not repent from its sins, especially sins of the flesh and bad marriages, in well-be-doeness. But Our Lady also warned that wars are only punishments for the sins of the world. So, in 2000, when the Vatican revealed what it said was the Third Secret in its entirety, the collective reaction of many people was, "That's it?" People sensed a disconnect between the urgent warnings of Our Lady of Fatima throughout the years to repent and the Vatican's bland report that everything about the Third Secret had already happened. For example, that the Pope would be attacked, but survive. Instead, people look around and saw the world still sliding toward total corruption and evil, just as Our Lady warned. Who can deny that lawful man-woman marriage has broken down completely? Families are in chaos, and suicide is legally sanctioned. The list of outrageous evils is well known, and it goes on and on. The hidden Third Secret. Beginning that same year with her last public interview, which means in 1957, the Holy Office, later the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, ordered that all of the writings of Lucia, including the secret in custody of the Bishop of Leiria, be sent to Rome. On top of that, nearly 2 years later, on the 2nd of July 1959, the Diocese of Coimbra issued a shocking denial of the words Lucia allegedly said in the interview with Father Asa Fuentes, after they had been translated into multiple languages and were already published around the world, claiming in the name of Senior Lucia that no such words were ever spoken by her, ATES. Fuentes was subsequently removed from his position as postulator for the causes of Stest, Francisco, and Jacinta. One hardly needs to be an aficionado of so-called Fatimist conspiracy theory to agree that this turn of events was odd, to say the least. This is particularly true if one considers that nothing in the interview reported by Father Fuentes cannot be found elsewhere in Senior Lucia's letters and memoirs, many of which were written later, and all of which are accepted as authentic. Stranger still is the fact that the publication of the interview was approved by the Bishop of Leiria Fatima, Monsignor da Silva, the same who gave the Fatima apparitions the official approval of the Church on the 13th of October, 1930. Moreover, the time lapse of 2 years between the time that the interview took place and the official reaction of the Diocese of Coimbra suggests, even to the most sober mind, at least some form of intervention from a higher authority in the diocese, Church. In a story that is well known, Pope John XXIII chose not to reveal the Third Secret of Fatima, which was in his possession, in 1960, and Pope Paul VI made the same decision in 1963. In the 1,980 seconds before the Third Secret of Fatima had been officially revealed, Father Michel de la Sainte Trinité hypothesized, based on public and/or published statements of those who knew something of the content of the secret, including, of course, Lucia herself, that the Third Secret of Fatima was something like the following. While in Portugal the dogma of the faith will always be preserved, in many nations, perhaps in almost the entire world, the faith will be lost. The pastors of the Church will fail gravely in the duties to their office. Because of their fault, consecrated souls and the faithful will allow themselves to be seduced in great numbers due to ruinous errors spread everywhere. This will be the time of the definitive combat between the Virgin and the demon. A wave of diabolical disorientation will sweep the world. Satan will infiltrate even the highest summits of the Church. Evil spirits will blind and harden the hearts of the pastors. Then God will leave them abandoned to themselves in punishment for their refusal to obey the requests of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. This will be the great apostasy announced for the last times, the false lamb, false prophet, who betrays the Church for the benefit of the beast, according to the prophecy of the Apocalypse. Perhaps the secret announces also one or another of the prophesied chastisements from Scripture pertaining to the last times. Perhaps it evokes the persecution the Holy Father will have to suffer when he will return in order to confirm his brethren and finally obey Our Lady's requests. The opinion that the secret of Fatima would include some reference to a great apostasy or some sort of a crisis in the Church was shared by many in the 1,970 seconds and 1,980 seconds including the great Fatima historian and editor of Lucia's memoirs, Father Antonio Maria Martins, who wrote in 1974, "The reason that induced me to give this edition the title, The Secret of Fatima in the Memoirs and Letters of Sister Lucia, was the sad fact of observing that, in spite of repeated denials from competent religious authorities, books and pamphlets of apocalyptic conjectures on the secret of Fatima continue to be printed, attributing words to Sister Lucia that she never wrote, nor even dreamed of. 2/3 of the secret are found in this volume. The third part, the content of which has not yet been revealed, deals only with what is referred to as the crisis of the Church. It is somewhat ironic that what Father Martins thought in 1974 was less sensational about the hypothetical content of the Third Secret of Fatima, namely, the crisis of the Church is precisely what is now considered the most sensational aspect of Fatimist claims regarding the hypothetical, full content of the secret, and what is most emphatically denied by several high-ranking church officials. Indeed, in terms of apocalyptic content, Father Michel's hypothetical version of the Third Secret of Fatima is in substance the same as the official version, released in 2000, with which most people are now familiar, except for the fact that the official version includes only a description of the symbolic vision, containing no words of explanation or interpretation from either Lucia or the Blessed Virgin Mary. Clearly, this symbolic vision is an authentic part of the Third Secret, though Fatimists would argue that it may not be all of it. That this vision is part of the secret was already confirmed by Lucia in her third memoir, which, as we learned above, was written in 1941, in which she relates the following vision of Street Jacinta. Another time we went to the Lapa do Cabezo. Once there, we prostrated ourselves on the ground and said the angel's prayers. Later, Jacinta got up and called me. "Don't you see many highways, so many roads and fields full of dead people trickling blood, so many people weeping with hunger, for they have nothing to eat? And the Holy Father praying in a church before the Immaculate Heart of Mary, and many people praying with him?" A few days later she asked, "Can I say that I saw the Holy Father and all those people? No. Don't you see that this is part of the secret? That way it will be discovered immediately." All right, I won't say anything then. Despite accusations leveled by critics of the so-called Fatimist network of conspiracy theorists, it is hard to understand what is particularly more sensational about Father Michel's version of the Third Secret, as compared to the official version released in 2000, which, incidentally, no pope or cardinal has ever claimed, was everything Lucia personally claimed, that Our Lady revealed to Francisco, Jacinta, and herself, but rather only what the Church officially stipulated that Our Lady revealed to the children. Indeed, the only point of substantial difference between the two versions of the Third Secret of Fatima is the part about Satan infiltrating even the highest summits of the Church, which is hardly sensational, and which in any case has been sadly confirmed throughout the history of the Church as a sober fact. Regardless of whether or not any further elaborations on the symbolic vision of the Third Secret, attributable either to the Blessed Virgin Mary or to Lucia's private interpretation, were ever in the possession of church authorities at any level of the magisterium, the undeniable fact remains that the hypothetical version of the Third Secret of Fatima contains no more and no less than the message Our Lady repeated to Senior Agnes Sasagawa in Akita, Japan, which is fully approved by the Church and therefore has a canonical status equal to that of Fatima, on the 13th of October, 1973. Exactly 56 years after the last message of Fatima and the miracle of the Sunday, it will be a punishment greater than the deluge, such as one has never seen before. Fire will fall from the sky and will wipe out a great part of humanity, the good as well as the bad, sparing neither priests nor faithful. The survivors will find themselves so desolate that they will envy the dead. The only arms which will remain for you will be the rosary and the sign left by my son. Each day recite the prayers of the rosary. With the rosary, pray for the Pope, the bishops, and priests. The work of the devil will infiltrate even into the church in such a way that one will see cardinals opposing cardinals, bishops against bishops. The priests who venerate me will be scorned and opposed by their confreres, churches and altars sacked. The church will be full of those who accept compromises, and the demon will press many priests and consecrated souls to leave the service of the Lord. The demon will be especially implacable against souls consecrated to God. The thought of the loss of so many souls is the cause of my sadness. If sins increase in number and gravity, there will be no longer pardon for them. The upshot of this is, of course, that while Lucia had to observe complete silence after 1960 regarding the Third Secret of Fatima, in obedience to the authority of the Church's magisterium, Our Lady did not.